worried about the timing of what to say, when to say it. I edit this stuff so it's nice and it just starts when it starts, that kind of thing. So
cool.
Okay. Well, thank you all for showing up today. So we have Coach Kid here on the call. He's eating some food. Bianca's getting ready to jump in to give her talk. And I'm Joey Spooner here, your host for Kanban in Government. And the whole point of the idea is really to share stories about Kanban being used in government, no matter where you are, state, local, federal, different countries, that's A-okay. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking you might have a story to share, please do reach out to me over Meetup and let me know that you'd like to share something. We'd love to have you here talking about your stories of Kanban in the government. So today we've got Bianca Griffon, who is a great person that I've known for a couple of years for sure now. I've met her back in 2017 in Germany and have since then been collaborating with her on products and ideas here at Kanban University. And she works part-time for us, so she also has a day job as well, working with different clients. And one of these clients happens to be the government in the Netherlands. So Bianca, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and get started here with this presentation.
Yeah, well, thank you, Joey, for having me tonight. My name is Bianca Griffon, and I am a Kanban coach and trainer in the Netherlands. And as Joey mentioned, I work part-time for the Kanban University and part-time for my clients in the Netherlands. And at the moment, I'm working for a department from the Ministry of Justice and Safety. And that's what my talk is going to be about tonight. So I'm going to start to share my screen now. There you go. Can you see this all right, Joey? Cool.
It looks great. Thanks.
So from Kanban to Fight Club, it's a government story, and my name's on the slide. So there we go. So the Ministry of Justice and Security in the Netherlands is one of the biggest ministries. It's responsible for, among other things, the police, courts, prisons, but also asylum and children protection. So it's a very big organization. And within that organization, they have a special IT organization, which is called the Judicial ICT Organization. In Dutch, it's actually also JIO, so which is funny because it translates pretty nicely. So within that organization, there are very much a lot of different departments. And I'm working for the department called Back Office. And the Back Office is responsible for maintenance and management of infrastructure, platforms, and applications. Very IT. And it's about 6 clusters, 14 teams in total, and about 180 people. So now you have roughly an idea of the size of the department I'm working with. So I got a call in 2019, and they said, we have a problem. And we would like you to help us out. And this is my initial assignment. Create more efficiency in the back office teams because we have resources and they are scarce. And capacity and demand do not balance. And we notice that teams are overburdened and unfocused. So they're all over the place. One of the main issues, and I will be getting back later to this, is that capacity just flew away and they didn't know where to. It was just gone. And people they need to fill in these forms at the end of the week on the hours that they made on what project or what subject they made them. And there was this category, I think we all know them in the big organization, everything else. Well, that was the biggest category, but because of that, we didn't know where all the scarce capacity went to. So that was a big problem. I started in 2019, and we quickly decided, after discussing with department heads, there were 2 of them at the time, to introduce Kanban. So the first step was to introduce Kanban in the teams. At the time, I didn't know I would be here still because I'm still working at the Ministry of Justice, but I thought it would be a short assignment, 6 months to a year tops. Boy, was I wrong. But I started to introduce Kanban, and we started to give everything in the department the team Kanban practitioner training. 180 people, thankfully, I had another trainer with me, and for 2 full weeks, we did nothing but TKP, 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 day in, day out. I think at the end of the 2 weeks, I could like literally dream TKP. I would have a TKP on the day and a TKP on the night. After TKP, we started with the 3 teams, and we chose these teams for 2 reasons. One was the urgency, and the second thing was how big we thought the chance was that they were adopting Kanban pretty easy. So they were pretty fast in adopting Kanban. So those were the 2 main reasons to pick the 3 teams that we started with. So with these 3 teams, we started to do static workshop of 2 days, and the goal being to have the first setup of their Kanban system. After the first wave of the 3 teams, we went in waves and picked up, when we thought it was stable, it was like 8 weeks when the first things, we were with the 2 of us. And after 6 to 8 weeks, we just gradually get another team in and do the static workshops for 2 days. And then about 4 weeks later, another team and another team, until we trained all the teams and had static done for all the teams. And then we started to visualize the boards. One of the first questions I got was, but there are Kanban tools, right? Why don't we do this digitally? And I said, yeah, you can after 3 months. I always like to start, and this was pre-COVID, right? This was in 2019. I always like to start with a physical Kanban board, because I think that the learning curve is better with the physical Kanban board. And they accepted, thankfully. And if you look closely, you can see me taking a picture in the middle. This was the first Kanban board for one of the teams. And I really am very much in favor of the start with what you do now, meaning that we just visualized stuff and we categorize them in classes of services. And you find here, there's first class of service, there's the alarm, which is the expedite service. And then the fixed date standard. And all at the bottom, you see jaarplan, which it means yearly plan. And that were the intangibles. So they got their own namings. We had a WIP limit of 3 per person, which was as good as it gets at the time, and some policies on the right. So we started with this visualization. Another thing that I really wanted to do. So when I started in 2019 with this customer, I thought to myself, okay, so now I have this new fresh opportunity to really build a great case study and use metrics and start measuring at the beginning. So I did. And fortunately, we had Excel and this physical board and sticky notes, and I could see, because I was sitting in the same room, whether they would do the ticket administration correctly or not. So these were the first metrics that I have, some of the first metrics I have in the early days. To the right, in the top right, there's a metric that I called outside of your board. So remember, start with what you do now. And I know in teams that start that they have a lot of things that they do not consider work. And I always want to have control of that. I want to know what they think is not work at all. And they need to just, and we are collaborating on how we are going to visualize that and what it is. So we together we decide on which categories there are. We decide on when they, I don't know what the English word is, but when you put like turven, like stripes, like 1 hour is one, and then the second hour is another one, and then
yeah, we call those tick marks. So
tick marks, okay.
Yeah.
So he's decided to use tick marks, and every tick mark is an hour of work. And then I created this graph out of that. So I know how much time is going to what category. And that was something that is within the line of expectations or not. And as you can see here, they had a lot of, they thought they had a lot of meetings, but this is a team of about 10 persons. And if you think about the number of hours in a week, then I thought, okay, I think that the meetings are okay. You consider them a lot, but they're okay-ish. It's not something that I would expect to be very differently. Of course, we can work on the number of meetings you're having, but still. I did have another team. I didn't show the metric here that had a crazy amount of everything else. And when we dove into that, they had like this whole category of work that they thought shouldn't be on the board, because they were also doing work for like the newspaper and the internet and all that kind of work. So not IT related work, but other work. And that was not on the board. So capacity was gone. I didn't know where it was. And thankfully, because of this, I could control it, and we could make policies of how to handle that type of work. So another thing is we did is take a look at what's the situation I'm in. What's the work we're getting towards us? And this is a picture I drew because in this particular team there was a lot of planned work, but like 70% was unplanned. And it's weird when 70% of your work is unplanned. So how do we get control of that unplanned work? So in the bottom you can see projects. Projects were almost always unplanned. One of the first things we did here was move projects to the planned part. How can we control that? We drew stakeholder maps, and we did all kinds of exercises just to get to know where we were. And this was not like in a day or 2 days. It was during a longer period of time. It's like 3 to 6 months, I guess, because every time that something popped up, this planned and unplanned thing popped up like 4 months after. And when something popped up, we just dove into it with the whole team and took a look and then took actions. The amount of work coming towards the team could be divided in like 3 major categories. And the first thing was like incidents and service requests. So very short time tickets you just spend not a lot of time on, and a lot of tickets coming your way. So high velocity and amount of tickets was huge. And then you have like the maintenance on your IT and your internal lifecycle management projects. Things like updates and fixing, how do you call it? Forgot the word, never mind. Again, I think you know what I'm getting at. And the third category was projects. Projects were large amounts of work coming slowly because the project doesn't start every other day. But impact was huge. Until the moment we got there, they never had the insight that they were actually having multiple areas of work. And then we went to the head of the department and said, okay, so this is what's going on in your teams. Do you think they are working on the right items? And then he said, this is what I want it to look like. So I want it to look like that we work on 60% should be maintenance, and 20% should be internal projects and lifecycle management, and 20% should be customer projects. And the 60% is not a hard number, but the focus should be there. And if it's more, then the internal projects, lifecycle management, and the external projects will pay the price for that. So here what we try to do is we try to balance out, actually set a WIP, but not in hard terms, more in percentages and in relatively to each other on this several types of work that were coming to the teams. This gained so much insight for the teams. So one of the first questions I tend to ask is when I got to coach a new team is, okay, so it's Monday morning, you go to work, you push the start button. How do you know what to work on? And usually I get this glaze. So the first couple of months was all about how do I know what to work on? Because that was one of the things that people in the teams also said was a big problem. We slowly started to get the environment of the teams to acknowledge that there was a problem and that it was not just the team that's the problem, but that the environment plays a role in that too. And one of the things we did was place responsibility where it belongs, meaning that someone called, I need this, and we wanted to create insight and oversight. So by now we were using Jira as a ticketing system for changes, and Top Desk was a system in place for incidents and service requests. So when we started, the people in the teams would create those tickets. This is a picture I drew about, it doesn't matter where your item comes from, but you need to either create a ticket in Jira or you could need to create a ticket in Top Desk. What we like to do is to get the customer to take that responsibility to create that ticket. So put the responsibility where it belongs. This was tough because the people in these teams were always kind of, but if I ask that of my customer, doesn't he think I'm unwilling? Or isn't it bad to do that? It's my job, right? No, it's not. And your customer wants something from you, so he can do some effort to get that to get his needs satisfied. But unfortunately, due to all kind of system constraints, we never got to the point that the customer could actually make a ticket in Jira or a ticket in Top Desk. We did find a way around that, though. I'll talk about that later today. On other areas, we did succeed in putting the responsibilities where they belonged. And about the fact that we didn't succeed in customers having to create their own ticket this is one of the three big takeaways for me in government organizations. I've worked with the Ministry of Justice now for like 4 years. I've worked with the Ministry of Education, and blah, blah, something more for a couple of years. And this is something that I know is all around, is everyone is allowed to have an opinion. We even have a Dutch saying that says, iedereen mag zijn plasje erop doen, which literally means everyone is allowed to pee on it. And after that, we decide not. So this just held us back for a very, very, very long time. And we needed to move around it. So to start with where you are was very important for us to get people to move with us, to take this journey with us. And we had a lot of talking, a lot of explaining, so you see this this presentation I'm showing you, you see a lot of pictures I drew all the time just to explain and just to let everyone have their opinion, pee on it, and then decide and take the next step. Wow. Any questions on this part?
So it sounded like things were really time consuming as far as moving forward, right? Because everyone had to give their input into something as far as what you were doing, as far as how you changed.
Yeah.
And you ran into the typical bureaucratic wall of we want to provide something of service to our customers, but policies, bureaucracy, whatever, we can't actually open up the door for them to put in a ticket, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. And one other thing I noticed, Bianca, that you did that was kind of exciting to me is you said, hey, let's educate people on the ABCs of what Kanban is, which is kind of what you started with. Then you selected teams based on urgency and kind of their chances of basically holding on to this knowledge and using it. And then you did the static thing, which is the systems approach to introducing Kanban. I was kind of curious about one thing on that. Like, what parts were you able to do? Because I saw you had a board up there. Did you basically just say, start with what you do now, we'll just start with the board? Or did you actually do a little bit more homework, like in terms of collecting information? Did you have that available?
Yeah, well, not here, because that's a secret environment.
Got it.
Which I can reach right now. But yeah, we did the complete static. We created a static wall with internal dissatisfactions, external dissatisfactions, and who are your customers and what do they expect? How does work come towards you, and does it come in waves? So one of the things that we noticed, for example, is that projects always tend to come in waves. They come in somewhere around February, because in January, everyone thinks, hey, cool, I got budget, let's start a project. And then project started, and then it kind of toned down. And then somewhere in September, it picked up again because everyone thought, oh my, I still have budget left. I need to start this project now or my budget is gone.
Right.
So what we wanted to do is we wanted to level any large internal changes, like change management projects, in a flow against this project flow, so that there would be a steady line of large clusters of work projects, whether internal lifecycle management related or from a customer need. So that was one of the things that we found in the static workshops.
Wow. It's awesome, because one of the things I find that sometimes static can accidentally do is overly formalize where you are, and you accidentally get too complicated. And it looks like you kind of kept things somewhat basic and reflected what was there with your board example that you showed there earlier.
Yeah, and that was intentional. And we were, it was intentional from our side, but it was also a bit of a constraint from the culture of the organization. So we couldn't do too much of a bigger change. And I tend to, my style is a bit like, okay, let's start where we are and pick your worst problem and focus on that. So what was fun to see is then with my 3 teams, after 3 months, I had 3 different Kanban implementation, because one team was really struggling with having insight in their work. And one team was struggling with, okay, so we're 42 people here. We have like 12 different components of work. What do you mean we're one team? So we focused on them being and feeling a team, which was a completely different topic than the other one saying, I don't know what's coming to me, want to work on it and why and how, and it's too much. I just pick whatever comes first, or whoever screams the loudest, or whoever was the latest standing next to my desk.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for answering that, because I was really curious how things kind of came together that way.
Yeah. Cool. So going forward to the next step is after we finished introducing Kanban to all the teams, we noticed that there was a shift from team to department. So one of the things that we did is we said, okay, now every team knows Kanban more or less. And there were more mature teams, there were less mature teams. And we as a coach want to take a step back from the team coaching. So no one-on-one team coaching anymore. So what's a model that you feel comfortable with in coaching perspective? And so we came up with a model, which was that there were 2 people from every sub-team. So from every team, sorry. And we would coach them and they would coach their team. And if there were like bigger problems or they needed a facilitator or they wanted to have some extra knowledge on a specific part of Kanban, then they would call us and we'd show up, do our trick and coach those people again. Which was funny because when I said, okay, so now you guys get to name yourself. You get to choose a cool name. So they called themselves Flow Masters. And we joined those Flow Masters in a weekly meeting. And a meeting when we started at first was the purpose was to not only to see where the teams were in terms of Kanban and maturity, but also to align Kanban across the teams. So looking at the department, maturing the department into the Kanban in the department, not only on the team level, but on the department level. And that was the first goal of the Flow Master meeting. Later on, and I'll get back to that too in my talk today, is there was a second goal added, and that was making sure that the flow of projects in the back office department was managed well. Mm-hmm. So the KMM wasn't at that point available yet, or in a very beta version, I'm not sure, but we created our own maturity model at the time. And you can see it's much like, do they have a Kanban meeting? Yeah. Do they have a Kanban system? Yeah. Do they do like manage flow, have metrics? Do they have a retrospective, replenishments, etc., etc.? So you see the team names on the left. Well, I actually, these are phony names. Yeah. But this is what we did in the beginning, and thankfully KMM showed up, and then we started to plot the teams on the KMM. And what was, you see now it's a movement. So the light blue is where they started, and the darker blue is where they were at the point that we took this when we did this assessment. And what we noticed is that some of the teams were really struggling. So you can see there's one team here that was on level 0. It was literally level 0 for a very long time. This was like 1.5 years later when we started. But some teams really picked it up very well and grew in their maturity, which was fun to see. So what did we do? We created more explicit policies. And this was necessary because we're now not only looking at team, but also looking at the department, and the department in his or her environment, that was a very complex environment. So we needed more explicit policies on a department level. This particular policy is, okay, I'm a project, and the back office is a very operational department. So what do I need to do to make sure that my project is flowing smoothly through the system? And there's this policy about that. We also moved a little upstream, a little. So one of the problems we were having is that project managers said, okay, I don't like the back office because I need to shop 14 teams to get my capacity. And then I have like this capacity in my project, but you have this funny system, what do you call it, Kanban or something. And then they say that they don't have any urgency there, or I don't know, I don't have priority. And when I do have capacity, then suddenly it's gone. Something else is more important. So they were whining about it not working. They were right, by the way. On the other hand, the teams were complaining about, okay, so I have this project manager every other minute at my desk, virtual desk. By this time we were in COVID. And I'm getting so tired of being pulled out of my work and having this unplanned work all the time. can we do something about that? So we moved a little bit upstream, which meant that we decided to collaborate with project management and account management to see if we could solve things around this problem. And what we created was this picture. It looks complex, but it's kind of not. Sorry. We said, okay, so this is the really upstream part where you see BID a bit. This is really upstream part. We're not going to take a look at that. But here, where you see KPO, this is where project managers, department managers were on the same table. This was an existing meeting, which I just inserted some new goals into and said, okay, but other than the things that you are discussing already, we also need to discuss how projects are going to flow through our common systems in the teams. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. So this was the KPO was for projects with a customer need. And then here at the bottom, you have the same, it says supply board, which is actually the same, but for internal projects. The goal was exactly the same. It's just two separate, customer, internal. So what we agreed on is that those different meetings would be responsible for balancing capacity, demand, and capacity. And after that, they would give a go. And then the people in the team, the flow masters knew, okay, so this project is good to go. We can pick it up and we can do whatever we need to do to make sure that it has a good ending. So the yellow square in the middle says people and other means. And that means that it was as well balancing people as, for example, infrastructure, licenses. We needed to know what was demand and what was capacity. We created this flow in Jira. I don't like Jira, but you can work with it if necessary. As you can see here on the right, these are the Kanban board for the teams. And in the middle, this is the portfolio board we created for the teams. And on the left, more a little more upstream, the project board for as well the internal as the external projects. Let's see about the time. I'm not sure what the timing is.
Yeah, you got about a little more than 5 minutes left here.
Oh no, I still have a lot to talk about. Oh, gosh, I'm going faster, okay?
Okay.
And now my clicker doesn't work anymore. Oh yeah, no, yeah, yep. So flow in Jira, yeah, there we go. We introduced portfolio management on an operational level. And I said, okay, so someone needs to decide what projects we should pick up first and what projects we can hold on for a bit. And then no one answered. There was nothing as like a strategic portfolio at the time yet. So we did this on an operational level. And time just went by and I was just talking and talking and drawing and talking and drawing and talking and drawing. And 9 months later, I got pissed off. I'm sorry. Excusez-le-mot. You can cut that out, Joey.
It's all right. We've already talked about peeing on committees, so we're good. We're good.
And then I said, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to do first in, first out. So whatever the oldest project is on the portfolio, that's the first project we're going to pick up. 2 weeks, shit hit the fan. 2 weeks, someone said, you're not allowed to do that. I said, I know, but the ones who are not speaking up. So I don't know how to organize you guys to making the right decisions. So I inserted a little punctuation point here. And finally, we created something that's called a priority meeting, where several people of all over the organization are deciding what projects should go first and what should go later. We agreed that we should that prioritizing on short term based on whatever criteria should also mean that you should be planning on your capacity on long term. So it's not just a short term solution. You should also go look ahead. So that's what one of the goals of the portfolio was also about, knowing what's coming to you and already, how do you call it? Make sure that you are ready to receive those demands. So one of the things that we are having problem with, remember the metrics? So apparently there was not a really intrinsic motivation for people to register correctly. So metrics, I failed completely getting the metrics right. But we needed something to balance capacity and demand. So what I did was I went by every team that was there and I said, okay, so for every component, how many internal projects do you have? How many external projects do you have? How many other works do you have? How do you feel about that? So this column, which says werkdruk, which means pressure, saying, okay, so a scale from 1 to 10, how much pressure do you experience at this moment? Being 1, I'll have another margarita. Being 10, I'll quit tomorrow. And you can see that there was like high pressure. And then my question was, okay, so how much projects would you still be comfortable, like a 6? And that is what we called the width for the project. So that's how we try to get a number per team, per component, for the number of projects that they would think, gut feeling, this would feel comfortable for us to handle. So that is how we balanced capacity and demand to start with. Decisions takes a very long time. Decision making, like long time, like the 6 months, 9 months I just talked about, and then I even needed to do something horrible for them to decide. And one of the things that I noticed is because money isn't the issue in government, at least not in governments where I'm working. They talk about money, of course, but it's not like a commercial organization that's losing money when it's taking time. So decisions are, the impact of delaying decision is not impacting their existence, their survival, their market share, their return on investment. And therefore, there's no intrinsic motivation to take decisions very quickly or very fast. And everyone needs to pee on it. So decisions take a very, very, very long time. Remember metrics, my dream and nightmare at the same time. So these are metrics, same period of time, 2 years later, of the same team that I showed before at the CFD on the right-hand side, which looks like okay-ish, could be better, but I'm not too worried there. But what you do see is that the amount of tickets flowing through the system is much less than what they started with. And I'm now starting conversations with these teams to find out why. I'm not sure why yet. I haven't had that talk yet, but I noticed when I was building this presentation and taking these metrics, and I thought, it seems like they're doing less work. That's funny. Moral of the story, I don't have any good metrics yet. Because of systems, because of decision making taking long times, because of a change of department heads that had different opinions about metrics, because of a lot of stuff, I still don't have the metrics. Woohoo. The next step. So I'm going a bit faster now. Be ready for the future. So now they had a reorganization in May. And instead of looking at the department, we're now saying, okay, as an organization, we need to get the customer, we need to have this customer-centric approach, right? And we created these tabs. And these are just normal sales step. I have a need. Okay, let's see, what's your need? Can we answer that need? Okay, we can. And this is how much time it will take and how much it's going to cost you. Hey, the customer says, good, I like that. Go party. And then we actually are going to fulfill that need. So we receive the go and we're doing our jobs. And then we return it to the customer and he says, celebration, you did a good job. Well, that's the idea. So customer centric. Remember the portfolio on operational level? So we thought it might be a good idea not to have it on operational level, but also have it on tactical and strategical level. So this is the how strategic and tactical level portfolios interact with each other. So you have the strategic portfolio, but they have customer teams now. So every customer has its own team. So a customer has a customer plan. And then based on that one, you have your customer portfolio, but those need to be on one strategic portfolio. And that strategic portfolio will hopefully make sure that we don't need to have that priority meeting again, because now we have guidance like from strategic dripping down to operations. That's the idea. And we are now negotiating this throughout the whole organization. So a lot of talking again, a lot of talking, a lot of talking, a lot of drawing, talking, and everything, what he says, this kind of makes sense. Let's do this. So we also got roles belonging to the different parts of the process and belonging to the different portfolios at that moment. And we are literally, I'm so my husband just said, like a couple of days ago, he said, shall I do the next call for you? Because by now I know the story you're telling. That's how often I tell the same story over and over and over and over again. But it works. It really works. We have now convinced almost every, well, convincing is not the right word. It's really like co-creation, because this picture is the result of all those talks, and we started with a very different picture, and this is the result of everyone being on it. But still, it's tough. So if you want to change something within a government organization, you have this culture, and one of the things I almost always notice is, yeah, been there, done that. You are change number 47. Get in line. And people at government, they're just like this culture that says, I don't want to change, I don't need to change. Why? I'm sitting right here and I'll get retired in about 13 years. So hey, no problem. Yeah, it is a problem. And we need to work on that. So it's tough. Start small, think big, and then grow fast. Oh, that's about it. I'm not sure it was 5 minutes, but
You got it. You got it. That's great, Bianca. Thank you so much. That was really quite a story. And Andy, I know you might have been taking some notes along the way. I didn't know if you had something to ask really quick, some questions, because I have some questions too.
Yeah, if I may. So Bianca, thank you for sharing that. I feel your pain.
thank you.
This is not the first time we've sucked a peanut through a straw. I have a question about so really early when you're working with the teams, and I'm looking at the KMM practice maps, and I know that the first stressor that we apply is visualizing the work, right? Yeah. And often when we're working with a team, somebody has told them they're a team, and they're wanting to put their haircuts onto the board, and Is it because we're jumping to maturity level 1 and an expectation that, okay, you need to be a team, you need to be thinking about a team, don't put haircuts on the board, when actually they haven't done the private or the personal Kanban and worked out what tickets need to go on and what they need themselves? I'm wondering if, as coaches, we actually need to let people have personal Kanbans and work out how they want to collaborate together before we start forming them as a team and allow the team to naturally emerge. I'm wondering if actually level 0 is the better starting point than jumping in at level 1 and then fighting about putting haircuts on a board.
Yeah, oh, that's a good question. Oh, I'd love to simmer on that a bit more. Because when I started this assignment, I just teams were a given for me, so I never thought about what you're saying. But I really love the thought of taking even one step back, and I know because it also, we don't ask them to change. The only thing that we ask them is to visualize, but that's so much of a change for most of the teams, especially in organizations like this. There is so much resistance on that. And what you're saying might be a first baby step.
Yeah, it's a bit of just visualizing it. And again, I feel your pain working at the flight levels through to getting that strategic portfolio up. Just working with a client that we're working with at the moment, gone through, we have moved heaven and earth in 3 months to get everything visualized that is flowing through all the component teams, the product teams, up and into, and we're actually all creating value stream teams who are coordinating the product functions. So we're building out like internal services around the products, and having new teams which are coordinating. So things like compliance. So somebody comes in and said, in this area, there's new legislation, and it has a fine if you don't change your software. Now, at the moment, previously they had to go around all of the software teams and ask, and fight to get something onto the back. Now we've got somebody who owns the customer experience, and that value stream team they do the coordinating, but that gives us flight levels. So just visualizing that lot, 3 months, and we're still going. Still going. So it's such a stressor.
I feel your pain too. Yeah. And I'm not sure if the Dutch are very different from other government organizations around the world. I know that we Dutch people tend to be very blunt and open at some point, and which gives you some room to get to the good talk immediately, to the right talk pretty quickly. I'm not sure if that's different in other countries, though.
Something that is popping up here that I was wondering about with like what Andy was talking about is sort of forces at play. So it's a matter of what forces are in play. Because in her context, Andy, what I was wondering about is you mentioned the idea of personal Kanban to start them off. I thought, well, what kind of pressures are there to say we've got to form into a team, we've got to get project work done? So there's a higher level political pain that says we got to go because we haven't been going as well as we want. We need to move quickly, therefore put us into a team. Put the people into a team. People aren't saying we want to be in a team. They're just being told, hey, we have to manage this way now. Like, is there traditional project management in play at the same time there's this pain? And therefore you have to kind of say, well, we have to be something of a team to then allocate resources and get funding for budget and all that kind of behavior. So I wonder if there's some pressure.
It's a cool thing because I never questioned the fact that they are a team, except for the one team that said we don't think we are a team. So there we questioned, okay, so what's the team here? But on the other teams, we never questions, are you a team, or is this logically for you, for the organization, or is it just a few people together doing sort of the same stuff? And what you said, we need some span of control and a manager on top of it, and otherwise this organization won't work. That's a funny thing.
And I think it's interesting, as you say, Joey, going from product to a project to product, if or a service, if that's a team, or so we've got there are people who aren't dedicated. So then, because they might be managing a bit of this and a bit of that, and so all of the meetings are taking place because everybody wants to pee on it, right? So they're not actually meeting properly and understanding what's going on. So I'm now really rethinking just what a stressor just visualizing. I know it's the last thing there, but we're recording like crazy as well. All the policies, the explicit as well as the implicit policies, the tacit knowledge. Even
There's
that
so
can
much
be
implicit
huge.
policies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's just the way we do things around here. Well, let's write it down. Let's stick it into Confluence. It's like,
Exactly.
you really do that? Yeah, you do.
So one of the things that I did was in a pretty early stage was try to get the teams in not thinking of capacity, but in thinking of products and services. So it doesn't matter who's working on what. It just, if there's a project and it needs to deliver something, you deliver services and products to that project. So that project doesn't get to claim capacity anymore. No, it just says on a functional level, this is what I need. And you guys say, yeah, I can do that, or this team can do that, and you put it on your board. They don't need to care, or they don't even need to know who's working on what and when, as long as we meet the criteria that we agreed upon with each other. But that is such I'm still every time there's a new project manager, or every time we have this reorganization, I still need to tell them, okay, don't think in capacity. No, you cannot claim capacity in these teams. You want a service or a product. I get that. So that's what you will get.
You're making me think about the work of Alex Osterwalder in the business model canvas. There's a teams canvas, but also there's a business model U. And this is, so again, I'm thinking about the personal Kanban and wondering about individuals as offering services. So as an individual, I'm offering a service. So then we might start to walk through mergers and acquisitions as we're bringing people together into a group, harmonizing them into a team, or keeping them. Staff liquidity is kind of like the goal that everybody's chasing these days, but they've got to go through a lot of pain, a lot of maturing before they get to I noticed, I don't know if they are component teams, but outcome-based teams. So actually being able to collaborate more freely around getting tickets through the system.
Yeah. So that's I really would love to go there, but I do feel the constraints of the organization. Yeah, and they're not ready for that kind of thinking yet. That's exactly what's happening. So yesterday I said, so the last picture I showed you about the future, what we're now in co-collaboration working on, is someone said to me yesterday, so Bianca, you are still going to be with us until 2035, right? I was like, actually.
Long service. Yeah. Retirement guarantee, Bianca, retirement guarantee.
Yeah, exactly.
Good Lord. Something else I wanted to mention just really quickly, because I noticed you had hinted at this. You have the JIRA boards that you're using for these various parts of the organization, but yet you said it was hard to get the metrics to be somewhat decent. Can you tell a little bit more about why that's so challenging?
That's because for the metrics to get them correctly, they need to fill in certain fields to know, so we know which category things are, which products and services they're delivering. And that was really, that was a pain. And just recently we decided to make those fields mandatory because people are not filling in their fields. And sometimes people are not. So what we also see is that we moved a bit back of team coaching. And now I notice that I need to get more closer to the teams again, because there are new people and they tend to loosen up a little bit. And I noticed that tickets aren't being created as much as they used to do. And when they are created, the quality of the tickets isn't as good as it used to be. So we need to get closer to the teams again to get that up again. And we already had we are having how do you call it, leveling up sessions soon. So in November, December, January, we are having leveling up sessions, and then I'll go by the teams one by one again, and see what they need to get these registrations back on track.
Do you, Bianca, are you using Jira's own metrics, or are you using Nave?
No, Nave. I'm using Nave.
Yeah.
I love Nave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's right, go ahead. I was going to say the tool that makes it easier is always the best tool to use, because otherwise you're kind of like playing a lot with the tools that don't necessarily line up with what you want to do, and it's harder to work with ultimately. Yeah,
and because it's on premise, we are only allowed to have the on premise Jira, and which means that a lot of plugins don't work, because most plugins are for cloud, Jira in the cloud, and yeah, we don't have Jira in the cloud, we have on premise. So we definitely have older versions, and not all the plugins work. So we kind of make it work, but it's just going around a very huge rock.
Yeah, and Nave works on premises, does it?
So yeah, and we can anonymize the data. So we anonymize the data before it gets into Nave.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done that before for other things in the federal space, where to say, okay, anonymize it so we can at least process it and figure out what the heck are we seeing here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I know it's 9 o'clock your time, guys, so I don't want to keep you up any later, but this is great, Bianca. This is really like interesting, right? There's so much more going on behind the scenes, and a lot of it is this challenge of just basics, right? Visualization, policies, and just getting people to kind of start to work together. That's a big change in the government space.
Yeah, and what the fun thing is, just closing, is that things that seem so natural for me or for us feel so like alien to a lot of people. We think, so sometimes I think, okay, but this is common sense, right? And then I see this glaze in their eyes and I think, okay, now I'm an alien again.
Then you've overreached at that point, basically.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But it's fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. When you start to see these things coming together, where there's a better picture of coherence, better picture of alignment, maybe a better picture of execution, that's good stuff. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Bianca. That was awesome. I'm going to stop recording.